love the shade and the way that the sun lights on the rocks. It's very, very peaceful and quiet. I've never wanted to live on top of the mountain. I've always liked to be down there by the creek, down where the small animals live, and it's a special place. Well, I've been an artist all my life. I've always been an artist, and in the last years particularly have focused on the wildlife. That's been the subject of my art most recently. Certainly over the last 15 years, I've been concentrating more on doing the wildlife and wild places. Whether it's the blowing grasses, which I've always loved to do, or just a portrait of the face of an animal. Trying to think about their lives is what I try to do, and how they survive in today's world. Every year there'd be a story about a bear in our backcountry or in San Ynez Valley that had come down, gotten into trouble, into somebody's backyard. And I always sort of felt bad about that, but I didn't really know much about bears. And then one summer, and it was 2003, I remember it very well, we have a small place in Montana, little cabin there, and it's right on the river. And I was sitting there one day looking out the window, and a grizzly jumped into the river and swam across. That's really interesting. That's not a black bear. That's a grizzly bear. I see his big hump. I could tell that, and it was definitely. And I thought, that is beautiful, and that's really exciting to think there's a grizzly right there. So I started to read about them, and at the same time I started to read about the bears, I started to sketch them. I started a notebook. I did a lot of drawings of bears. And that whole summer, for a couple months, I was just totally into bears. And I learned so much that it wasn't just me in the 20th century here, 21st century, being interested in bears. People, from as long as there were people in all cultures, were fascinated by the bear. So I said to myself after that summer and all, well, what can I do? And I thought I would like to honor in some way all of the bears. And at one time in the 1840s and 1850s, there were over 10,000 grizzly bears in the state of California. Many grizzly bears all around the Santa Barbara area. So I decided to do, and it developed slowly. It wasn't an overnight thing, but I said I'm going to build a building, and it's going to be in honor and in respect to the grizzly bear who lived on this very land. And that's when I began working on this special little building that I later named the Dome of the Great Bear. For some reason, it's just in the last years, I have felt so connected to the wildlife, and that's why I've gotten into doing so much of that and hoping to tell a story about all the wildlife through the bear. Sometimes they flip all around. Okay. It's kind of like a giant jigsaw puzzle. So I decided in this particular mosaic to do a black bear looking at the last wild grizzly, which of course is on the California state flag, with the star, the grizzly, the California Republic words, the black bear looking. And I wanted to show, because in such a very, very short time, those 10,000 bears were reduced to one lone bear on a flag. The grizzly bear is such an iconic animal, such a large, magnificent animal, and within a short time period in California's history, the bear was totally wiped out. I thought, well, if that can happen to the grizzly bear, what about the other animals? And we all know that species are dying at such an alarming rate, plants, animals, and all in today's world. I just felt that the grizzly bear was a good statement about thinking of all of our wildlife today. And that's why I've been portraying it and hoping that we can keep in certain areas of our country some of these beautiful animals. So I care a lot about the critters, and I can't really explain why. It's just the emotion that I have for them. At the garden that I named Creek Spirit. The dome building itself is dedicated to the grizzly bear of California. But I had the idea to start the Creek Spirit Wildlife Foundation to help wildlife in ways we can through education, inspiration. All around it's to, through art, make people more aware. Such an interesting animal. They're not only interesting because they've been here, we know what a bear is, we understand it, but in mythology, way back to the Greeks and the Romans and the early times, the bear was always considered the most sacred animal. He was always the head of the tribe. If you were in the bear clan, you were in the top of the whole group. You can't sugarcoat what happened to the bears. It's a very sad story, and that's the reason I chose it to talk about it. Because if that, I always say, has happened to the grizzly bears, and to what's going to happen to the mountain lions, and to the black bears, and to other creatures that we have. That's why all of us, and especially you guys, you're going to be out there. You've got to think about the wildlife and the nature. It's just so important in our lives. There, that's 50 birds of Santa Barbara County. All of those birds live within the vicinity of this area. And the birds that are here are all just birds that we see in California.
Find a quiet place, do some haiku or poetry or sketching, some quiet time before we come back together.
Today we learned about grizzly bears, and when the settlers came to America, when they built their homes where the grizzly bears were raising their families, and when they came and saw the grizzly bears, that they shot them and then trapped them, but it was really the grizzly bears' home, so the grizzly bears fought back, and the humans and settlers during the gold rush killed all the grizzly bears. So in the end there was none left, but now there's still grizzly bears in Montana, but there's no more in California to roam.
And I hope that they will realize that they're the future, and their relationship with the animals is crucial because they need to take over where people like Patti and myself leave off. The world is changing rapidly, and they need to be the guardians. Some of you wrote and some of you drew some things. You want to start us off?
The koi pond is still, they all gracefully wander under the lotus leaves.
The creek flows and flows, the fishes beg for their food, and I stay quiet.
Here's one. Yeah. Oh, okay, I did like 3 haikus, but I don't know, I might only do 2. Okay. The clean smell of pine, the chirping of the birds, the warmth of the sunshine. Then big giant boulders plop down for a long, long time, stay there forever.
We are blown away by the beauty and the peace and everything that's here and your spirit, Patti. So thank you for having us.
Well, we've enjoyed having you come. So keep working, think about nature and the animals, and thank you for coming, everybody.
Thank you.
I say, how can you help wildlife? Wildlife is something very hard for people to help. I've thought, how can you really help the wildlife? And other than giving them a place to live, their own lives, you can't do a lot. I wish you could. One of the few things that I personally could do is to depict the animals and hope that other people too have a feeling about doing their part, whatever it may be, to help. Yeah. I was thinking I might change his nose, and then I rethought that thought. I don't think I want to get into it. I know what'll happen. I'll change one thing, and then the others will come out, and so I think I'll just keep going. While I was working in clearing the land at Creek Spirit, the property that I call Creek Spirit, I thought a lot about art and how art can help in conservation. At that time, I called together a group of people and we started the Wilding Art Museum, which today is in Solvang. The mission statement dealt with how art can help America's wilderness.
So our mission is to use art to promote nature, to promote conservation, and we hope that it actively happens, that people are coming here, they are inspired by the artwork that they're seeing, and then they're going out and exploring for themselves. And we just feel that's a wonderful, tangible aspect of our mission at play, and people connecting to nature and art because of us, and that makes us really happy. Yeah, so here in this show it's kind of fun because the artwork itself is amazing, But the stories of the individual species are just as amazing and probably long-term more important, at least from my point of view. You know, because we want these critters to be around for others to enjoy. One of my favorite aspects about working here is when I get to help lead a group of students through the museum, whether it's a particular show or the museum as a whole. It's just very exciting to see their interest level, to see their excitement, and to know that we've sparked something in them. And that younger generation that we're handing off the world to is maybe a little bit more aware of the natural world and maybe a little bit more motivated to help preserve it for their future generations.
When people become more aware, especially because today our wilderness and our wildlife and our wild things in the wilderness are disappearing so quickly, that a lot of people never have an opportunity to see a forest or see a mountain pristine lake. So a painting, a drawing, a sculpture, a mosaic can show a little bit about that place and what is out there. There you go. His name is Monarch. When almost all the bears in California were disappearing, there weren't very many left, and this was about 1890 or so. William Randolph Hearst sent out a reporter actually. He says, go find me a bear, find me a young bear, because they're all disappearing. So this man looked for 6 months to find a bear in Ventura County, and he captured the bear, and they took him up to San Francisco, and that bear lived there for 22 years. He was the last bear in California that lived in captivity. Over the years, they found some bears in Yosemite and all, a few. But by 1900, 1920, every bear was gone. But that's just to remind us what happens to the species. And I just did him, even though it's a sad story, though, to remind us we've got to keep those animals alive in one way or another. But anyway, this is Monarch at a happy time. He's young like you guys are. You got lots of fun things ahead. So with that, let's go downstairs and see some more bears. So what I would like children to take away is just a realization they're still there, because we don't see our wildlife that much in everyday life. And what you don't see, you don't think about. And if you don't think about, you don't care so much. I'm just hoping that the children will get excited about animals and doing what they can in conservation as they grow older. It's just that I really do love all forms of nature, and I just think that nature is such a healing process for people and for children, and to be able to go out into it, even a walk in the Botanic Garden or in a forested area, is so good for us, for all of us. It puts us in our place in a way, and it puts me in my feeling better position, and I'm just a nature person, and I like to put that on, or show that to other people too, and especially in our world of technology, high technology and computers today, to get away from the screen for a little while and go outside and enjoy the world of nature.